Your objective for lesson 6 is I will draw rows and columns to determine the area of a rectangle given an incomplete array. So we're going to work with rectangles today, and they're going to have some rows and some columns already for you, but some of it's going to be incomplete. So you'll have to finish drawing the rows and the columns to help you figure out what the area is. Okay, so you're going to need the paper that's in your binder that says Array 1, and on the back side it says Array 2, because we're going to be working with those papers today in this lesson. So if you want to push pause and get those papers ready, you can, and push play whenever you have them in front of you. Okay, so I want you to look at Array 1. Yours is a lot bigger than mine is, and yours doesn't have these dots on them. Yours is just blank where the line should be. So how can an array of square units help you find the area of a rectangle? Well, we know that if this whole array was filled in, that all we would have to do was count all of the squares in the rows or the columns to help us find the area. But what we see about this rectangle is that some of the lines in the columns are not completely filled in. So we will have to finish drawing them in to help us find the area of it. And I noticed right here that in the top row that they finished the whole row, they just didn't leave a space right here for the other line. And you can see underneath it that there was a line there. So on your array template for number 1, I want you to go ahead and I want you to draw the line that is supposed to go right here and just draw it straight down on your paper so we know that that is another column. So if you want to push pause to draw that, you can. Okay, so now we see that we have this one other column all the way down here at the bottom. And so now I know that up at the top we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 square units. And we can tell by looking at this side right here that there's probably going to be another square unit down here at the bottom. So if you want to finish taking all of these lines and taking them all the way down to the bottom of the rectangle so we can see all of the columns clearly, go ahead and do that on your array and push play whenever you're ready. So now we can see that this rectangle is looking a little bit better because we can see more clearly how many unit squares there are in it. And without even having these lines over here on this part of the rectangle drawn, could you still figure out what the area is by knowing how many unit squares are going across the top and how many are going down the bottom? Yes, you could, because we know that with a rectangle that all you have to do is multiply the side lengths. So if I know that this right here has 4 unit squares, then I know that this one up top has 6 unit squares. And if I multiplied 6 and 24, that would give me 24 unit squares. Then I'm going to see by finishing my drawing of the rectangle if this area, or if this rectangle does have an area of 24. So I want you to go ahead and finish the drawing of the rectangle to where all of the unit squares are filled in. And I want you to double check that it has an area of 24. And whenever you're ready, I would like for you to push play. So whenever you finish drawing your rectangle, it looked like this with all of the lines filled in. And if you counted correctly, then you should have ended up with 24 squares in the rectangle. So the area was going to be 24 unit squares. So sometimes even though a rectangle isn't completely filled in, you can still finish your drawing of it. Or sometimes if you can just look at the top row and the side row and know how many squares are going to be on the top and on the side, you really wouldn't have to finish filling it in. You would know what the area was by just multiplying the side lengths. Okay, so we're going to be using the second array that's on the back side of your paper now. So if you'll just flip your paper over to get that ready. Okay, so by looking at this rectangle, can we figure out what the area is without finishing drawing the extra squares that go in it? Can we figure it out just by looking at how many unit squares are on the side and how many unit squares are on the top? Yes, you can, because I'm seeing right now that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 unit squares at the top. So I know that this side length is going to have the side length of 6 unit squares. And I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the bottom. So I know that this side length has 5 unit squares. So I know that I could multiply 5 by 6, and it would give me what my area may be. So 5 times 6 would give me 30. So I want you to finish drawing the lines to complete this rectangle to figure out if the area of this rectangle is actually 30. You can use your ruler if you want to have that straight line to help you draw it more straight. So finish drawing this rectangle to see if the area of it is 30 square units. And whenever you're ready to check, you can push play. So when you finished drawing your rectangle, it would have looked like this. And if you counted all of the unit squares, you should have gotten 30. So the area of this rectangle is 30 square units. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the problem set. So if you will push pause and get that ready, and then push play whenever you're ready for it. Okay, so this is going to be a lot of what we just did. You're going to have to finish drawing in the lines on the rectangles to see what the area of it is. And if you notice up at the top, it says that each one of the squares in the rectangle represents 1 centimeter square. So we know that we're going to be working with square centimeters on these problems. You're going to have to draw to find the total number of rows and columns in each array, and you're going to have to match it to its completed array. So A, as you can see, is not going to match with this one right here, so you would not be drawing a line to this rectangle to match it. You're going to have to match it to another rectangle that is the same as this one or this one or this one is. So once you have finished drawing in all of the lines on the rectangles, you will need to match it to another rectangle, and then you will also need to fill out the area. Like for example, this one right here, you would need to put 5 times 3 is 15 because that's the area of this one. So over here, don't put the area of what this rectangle is, but put the area what these rectangles are on this side of the paper. So if you want to go ahead and fill in A like mine has, and then fill in the area right here of what this rectangle was by using that multiplication equation, so you got those two done for you. Then I want you to finish up this page by working on C, D, and E and F all the way down at the bottom, and then writing in the area with the multiplication equations for these rectangles on this side. And then at the end, we will, or you will, draw a line from the rectangles on this side of the paper to match them to this side of the paper. And then whenever you're ready to check all of your answers, you can push play. If you want, use your ruler on this side of the paper to help you draw the line straight if you want to. So whenever you have all of that completed, push play, and we'll go over what the answers are. Okay, so for rectangle B, it looks similar to what this is. Rectangle C looks like this. Rectangle D like this, and some of my lines are a little off, but the computer wasn't doing exactly what I wanted it to do. And rectangle E looked like this. Rectangle F looked like this. Okay, so back over here on the other side, I'm just going to go through the areas. This should have been 4 times 5 equals 20. This should have been 2 times 6 equals 12. Right here should have been 4 times 3 equals 12. This one would have been 5 times 6 equals 30. And this one is 3 times 7 equals 21. So going back up here to A, that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows with 6 in each row. So you would have drawn a line to this one right here for 5 times 6 equals 30. B had 3 rows with 7 in each row, so you would have drawn a line to this one down here at the very bottom to match those rectangles up. C had 5 rows with 3 in each row, so you would have drawn a line to this one up here at the top of the paper. D had 4 rows with 5 in each row, so you would have drawn a line to this rectangle right here that had 4 times 5 equals 20. E had 2 rows with 6 in each row, so you would have drawn a line to this rectangle that was 2 times 6 equals 12. And F had 4 rows with 3 in each row, so you would have drawn it to this rectangle right here that had 4 times 3 equals 12. So we're going to go over to the back side of the problem set now. Number 2 says Sheena skip counts by sixes to find the total square units in the rectangle below. She says there are 42 square units. Is she right? And explain your answer. So I covered this up because I do want you to go ahead and finish drawing the lines to complete this rectangle. But I want you to ask yourself first is, can she skip count by sixes? When you look at the columns going up and down, you notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in each column, so there are 6 rows in each column. But since we don't know how many are going to be in each row, we really wouldn't know how many times to skip count by 6 yet. This bottom part would help us because you can see that these lines are drawn a little bit. So I can see just from this bottom row that there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different squares in it. So that will help you figure out if she's going to be able to have 42 square units or not. So go ahead and finish drawing the lines in the rectangle. And then I want you to write a sentence to tell me, is she right? And explain to me why you put that she was right, or explain to me why you put that she wasn't right, depending on how many unit squares are in this rectangle. Whenever you're ready to check your answer, I want you to push play. Okay, so this is what the rectangle looks like. And it turned out there were 8 in each row. So I know that if I have 6 on this side, and if I have 8 on this side, and I know that 6 times 8 is 48, then that's going to be more than 42. So she doesn't have 42 square units in her rectangle because she actually has 48. So the sentence I was looking for is no, she is not correct because there are 48 square units. That's really the only thing that you needed to say that would explain your answer and tell me why she's wrong. So if you need to correct anything on number 2, go ahead and do that before you move on to number 3. Number 3 says the tile floor in Brandon's living room has a rug on it as shown below. So right here is the rug, and this whole rectangle is going to represent his living room floor. How many square tiles are on the floor, including the tiles under the rug? So we're just going to have to imagine that this rug wasn't even here, but you can still see what this side length is going to be, and you can still see what this side length is going to be. So just because we can't see what squares are under the rug doesn't mean that we can't find the area, because if we know what this side length is and we know what this side length is, all we have to do is multiply those side lengths to help us find what the area of the rug is. Or in this case, they're asking how many square tiles are on the floor. So I want you to go ahead and figure out how many square tiles are in this whole rectangle by multiplying the side lengths, and write your answer in a sentence. And whenever you're ready to check your answer, I want you to push play. Okay, so the sentence I was looking for where there are 90 square tiles, and if you put there are 90 square tiles on the floor, that's still the same thing. Now I would like for you to write the equation that you use to help you find how many tiles are on the floor. I don't want it to be an addition equation because we used a multiplication equation to multiply the side lengths. So go ahead and write the multiplication equation that you could use to help you find how many tiles there were on the floor. Push play whenever you're ready to check your answer. So the equation I was looking for was 9 times 10 equals 90 because there were 9 on this side of the rectangle and there are 10 squares on this side of the rectangle. So all we had to do was 9 times 10 and that gave us how many squares there were total. We're going to move on to number 4. Okay, so number 4 says Abdul is creating a stained glass window with square inch tiles as shown below. How many more square inch glass tiles does Abdul need to finish his glass window? So you're going to first have to figure out how many square inch tiles does he have right now, because it's not asking in this question how many tiles is he going to need in all. It says how many more is he going to need. So all in this white area, how many square inch tiles are going to go there? So your first step is to figure out how many he has so far. And then once you figured that out, I want you to go ahead and I want you to finish drawing in all of the lines on this rectangle on your paper. And you need to figure out how many more squares did he add. And then you're going to need to write a sentence to tell me how many more square inch glass tiles he needed to finish his glass window on this rectangle. Whenever you're ready to check your answer, you can push play. Okay, so your rectangle would have looked like this. Fill all in the white space, and the sentence I was looking for is Abdul needs 30 more square inch glass tiles because there are a total of 42 tiles in this rectangle after you filled in all of the lines. And he started with 12 squares at the beginning. So if you took 42 minus 12, then it left you with 30. So that's how we knew that he needed 30 more square inch tiles. Okay, moving on to the exit ticket. This is kind of like the one that we did with the rug, where you have to find how many more square tiles are on the floor. On this one, I know it doesn't say it in the sentence, but I do want to see the equation that you use to help you figure out your answer, and I do want to know, or I do want you to put your answer in a sentence. So whenever you're finished with this, bring it to me.